I loved him most in the mornings, before he woke. That's when the house still belonged to us. The soft hum of the coffee maker, the way light crept through the blinds in pale strips, the silence that felt like safety. I would stand at the kitchen counter, barefoot on cold tile, and watch him sleep through the open bedroom door. His breathing steady, his phone face down on the nightstand, charging, always charging. The coffee pot would gurgle and hiss, filling the kitchen with that dark, bitter smell that meant morning, meant routine, meant another day of the life we'd built together. I'd pull 2 mugs from the cabinet, his, white with a chip on the handle, mine, blue and smooth, and pour carefully, listening to the liquid sound, watching steam rise in the cool air. I didn't know then that I was memorizing the shape of something already gone. We had been married for 7 years, not the kind of marriage people write songs about, but the kind that works. Steady, predictable, built on routines we'd perfected without thinking. He took out the trash on Thursdays. I paid the electric bill. We texted throughout the day, small things, picking up milk or running late or love you, nothing poetic, just the language of 2 people who had built a life together and stopped questioning whether it was enough. The house was a 3-bedroom ranch we'd bought when I was pregnant with Sophie. Blue shutters, a maple tree in the front yard, a kitchen that was too small but got good morning light. We'd painted the nursery together, arguing about the shade of yellow until we were both laughing. He'd gotten more paint on himself than the walls. I took a photo of him standing there, covered in buttercream dream, grinning like an idiot. I used to look at that photo sometimes, remembering when mess felt like joy. Our daughter Sophie was 4. She had his eyes, dark, quick to light up, and my stubbornness. She made us laugh in ways we'd forgotten how to make each other laugh. On Sundays, we took her to the park, the one with the big slide she was still nervous about, where she'd make us stand at the bottom and promise to catch her. On Fridays, we ordered takeout from the Thai place on Maple Street and let her stay up past bedtime, watching movies she'd seen a dozen times, mouthing the words along with the characters. We were tired most of the time, but it was the kind of tired that felt normal, even noble. We were doing what parents do, getting up at 6 a.m., packing lunches, reading bedtime stories, falling asleep on the couch during movies we'd promised ourselves we'd watch together. I can picture exactly how he looked during those years. The reading glasses he'd started wearing perched on his nose while he scrolled through his phone. The way he'd run his hand through his hair when he was thinking, leaving it standing up in the back. The faded college t-shirt he wore on weekends. So old the lettering was barely visible. The sound of his keys hitting the bowl when he came home from work, a ceramic bowl Sophie had made at preschool, lopsided and glazed in green. This isn't fiction. This is how love disappears, one small truth at a time. It started with the phone. Not the phone itself, but the way he held it, the way it lived in his hand now, even when we were sitting together on the couch, even when Sophie was showing him a drawing, even when I was talking. He would nod, make the right sounds, but his thumb would keep moving, scrolling, tapping, returning to some invisible elsewhere. I told myself everyone did this. We all lived half in the world and half in our screens. It wasn't personal. I did it too, sometimes. We all did. But then there were the late nights at work, the sudden interest in the gym, the way he started closing the bathroom door when he showered, something he'd never done before. The way he'd started buying new clothes, nothing dramatic, just a new shirt here, better jeans there. Small things, easy to explain, easier to ignore. He joined a gym in January, said he wanted to get healthier, that sitting at a desk all day was killing his back. I thought it was good. I encouraged it. I asked him how the workouts were going, and he'd say, fine, good, hard. He started leaving early some mornings to go before work, coming home with his hair still wet, smelling like soap and something citrus I didn't recognize. I didn't want to be the kind of woman who checks her husband's phone. I had always believed trust was something you either had or you didn't. That doubt was corrosive, that suspicion made you small. My mother had been that woman, checking my father's pockets, interrogating him about every late night, and I'd watched their marriage die slowly under the weight of her paranoia. I'd promised myself I'd never become that, so I didn't check. I just watched. And I started to notice. He changed his passcode. I knew because I saw him enter it once. 4 quick taps, different from the pattern I'd memorized years ago when he'd asked me to check a message while he was driving. It had been our wedding anniversary, 0718, July 8th. Now it was something else, something I didn't know. When I asked him why, casually, over dinner while cutting Sophie's chicken into small pieces, he said his work required it now. New security protocols. It had sent out a memo. He didn't look up when he said it, just kept eating, fork moving from plate to mouth. There were other things. A receipt for a restaurant we'd never been to. Del Frisco's downtown, 2 entrees, a bottle of wine. When I found it in his jacket pocket while moving laundry, I stood there holding it for a long moment, reading the date, a Tuesday 3 weeks prior. He told me he was working late that night. I remembered because I texted him asking if he wanted me to save him dinner, and he'd said not to bother, he'd grab something at the office. A charge for flowers I'd never received. $87.50 from the florist on Cherry Street, the expensive one. We only used for special occasions. He said they were for his mother. Her birthday had been that week, he explained. When I called her the following Sunday, making casual conversation, asking how her birthday had been, she mentioned the nice card we'd sent. Just the card. She didn't mention flowers. I started folding the laundry differently, just to have something to do with my hands. I would stand in our bedroom, holding his shirts, and feel like I was holding evidence I couldn't name. The fabric smelled like his cologne, the same one he'd worn for years, woody and familiar, but also something else, something floral and unfamiliar. Jasmine, maybe, or gardenia, a sweetness that didn't belong to our house. One night, I found a hair tie in his car. Black, stretchy, not mine. Mine were all brown, kept in a jar on the bathroom counter, or scattered through the house in random places. Hooked on doorknobs, tangled in Sophie's toy box, lost between couch cushions. This one was in the passenger seat, wedged into the crack where the seat meets the center console. I held it between my fingers for a long time, sitting in the driveway with the engine off, the garage door open behind me, the light from the house spilling out into the dark. It could have been anyone's. A coworker who needed a ride, a friend of a friend. Sophie's, though hers were all bright colors, purple and pink and sparkly, scattered through the house like confetti. I put it in my pocket and never mentioned it. After that night, I started listening differently, to the silences between his sentences, to the way he answered questions just a beat too quickly or sometimes too slowly, like he was calculating, to the tone he used when he said I love you, still warm, still familiar, but somehow automatic, like a password entered out of habit, the meaning worn smooth through repetition. By the time the leaves changed, I had become a different version of myself. I smiled at the right times. I made dinner, pasta on Mondays, chicken on Wednesdays, takeout on Fridays. I asked about his day and listened to his answers, searching for inconsistencies. I laughed at his jokes. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings. But underneath, I was always calculating, always measuring the distance between what he said and what I felt. The gap kept growing. Some weeks later, I started checking his location. Not obsessively, just occasionally when he said he was at the office and I wanted to believe him. His job had an app for employees, something about security and building access, and it showed everyone's location on a map if they were clocked in. Most of the time, the little blue dot sat exactly where it should, at the office complex on Industrial Boulevard, in the cluster of buildings where his company leased the 3rd floor. But once, it was somewhere else, a coffee shop across town, far from his office, far from anything that made sense. The Grindhouse? On the east side? In a neighborhood we never went to. I stared at my phone, watching the dot, watching it stay there for over an hour on a Thursday afternoon. When he came home, I asked how his day was. Busy, he said, kissing my forehead, setting his laptop bag on the counter. Meetings all afternoon. I nodded. I didn't say anything. I turned back to the stove, stirring soup I couldn't taste. The lies were so small they almost didn't count, but they stacked up, one on top of the other, building something I couldn't see the shape of yet. Sophie asked me once why Daddy was always on his phone. We were sitting at the kitchen table, coloring, and she said it so plainly, without accusation, just curiosity. Her crayon, purple, paused mid-stroke across the paper. Daddy works a lot, I told her. He has important messages to answer. She accepted this the way children do, without question, and went back to her drawing, coloring a flower with petals that went outside the lines. But the question stayed with me. In the quiet that followed, I began to look for proof. Not because I wanted to find it, but because not knowing had become unbearable. The uncertainty was eating me from the inside out, making me second-guess everything. Was I paranoid? Was I inventing problems where none existed? Was I the one breaking our marriage by refusing to trust? I started noticing patterns. He texted more at night after Sophie was asleep. We'd be sitting on the couch, the TV playing something neither of us was watching, and his phone would buzz. Once, twice, 3 times. He'd pick it up, the screen would light his face in blue-white glow, and I'd watch his expression change, soften, brighten, become something I didn't recognize. He laughed at things I couldn't see. Small huffs of breath, almost silent, just the slight shake of his shoulders. When I asked what was funny, he'd say, "Nothing, just work stuff," or "just a meme someone sent," and show me something innocuous, a cat video, a comic strip, something deliberately innocent. He angled his screen away from me subtly, as if it were reflex. A slight turn of the wrist, the phone tilted toward his chest. Not enough to be obvious, just enough that I couldn't see. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself I was tired, anxious, looking for problems where there were none. I told myself that love required trust, and trust required faith, and faith required letting go. But my hands shook when I made coffee. My chest tightened when I heard his phone buzz. I started waking at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, listening to him breathe beside me and wondering if he was dreaming of someone else. The sound of his breathing, once so comforting, now felt like evidence of distance. He was right there, close enough to touch, but somewhere else entirely. Years can pass inside a single evening. The notification came on a Tuesday. We were in the living room. Sophie was asleep upstairs, finally, after 2 glasses of water and 3 more stories. I was folding laundry on the couch, and he was beside me, scrolling. The TV was on, some show neither of us was watching, a cooking competition, people rushing around a kitchen, a timer counting down. The house smelled like the lavender detergent I always used, the same kind my mother used, the smell of clean laundry that meant home. Everything was ordinary. His phone was on the armrest between us. It buzzed. The screen lit up. Don't forget, Emily's birthday. I saw it before he did. Just a glimpse, a reminder, a name, an emoji shaped like a heart. Her name wasn't Emily. My name wasn't Emily. His mother's name wasn't Emily. His sister's name was Rachel. Sophie's teachers were Mrs. Chen and Miss Andrea. His boss was Margaret. I knew the names of everyone in his life, or thought I did. He grabbed the phone so fast it was like watching someone catch something falling. His face didn't change, but his body did. Shoulders tight, jaw set, fingers moving quickly to dismiss the notification. The phone disappeared into his pocket, and he settled back against the couch like nothing had happened. I kept folding the towel in my hands. Smooth, steady, automatic. I finished it, set it down, picked up another. A washcloth, soft and white, still warm from the dryer. "Who's Emily?" I asked. My voice sounded calm. I didn't feel calm. My heart was hammering against my ribs, my throat tight. He didn't look at me. "A coworker," he said. "Her birthday's this week. A bunch of us are getting her a card." I nodded. I folded the towel. I didn't ask why a coworker's birthday required a heart emoji. I didn't ask why he'd never mentioned her before. I didn't ask why he looked like someone who'd just been caught. I already knew, not the details, not the full shape of it, but I knew the way you know when a sound in the house is wrong. Before you've identified it, before you've seen it, you already know something has broken. I went upstairs. I told him I was tired. He said okay. He stayed on the couch, phone in hand, screen angled away. I sat on the edge of our bed in the dark and tried to remember the last time he'd touched me like he meant it. Not the perfunctory kisses goodbye, not the obligatory hand on my back when we walked together, but real touch, deliberate, hungry, present. I couldn't remember. The next morning I made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, coffee. I poured his coffee exactly how he liked it. Black, no sugar. I kissed Sophie's forehead and told her to brush her teeth. I asked him if he needed anything before he left for work. He said no. He said he loved me. He left. I stood at the kitchen sink, hands in soapy water, washing the breakfast dishes, and watched his car pull out of the driveway. The same car he'd had for 5 years. Silver, a small dent in the back bumper from when he'd backed into a pole at the grocery store. I watched until he turned at the corner and disappeared. Then I went into our bedroom and picked up his laptop. He'd left it open, asleep but not locked. I woke it with a single keystroke. The screen bloomed to life, showing his desktop, Organized folders, a background photo of the three of us from last summer at the beach, all of us squinting into the sun, Sophie between us, laughing. I didn't plan to look, I didn't want to. But my hands moved anyway, opening his messages, scrolling, searching for a name I'd only seen once. Emily. There were dozens of messages, hundreds maybe, stretching back months. I scrolled and scrolled, watching the dates roll backward. October, September, August, July. I read them slowly, one at a time, my chest tightening with each line. They weren't explicit. They didn't need to be. They were worse. Intimate in a way that felt more like theft than anything physical could. Inside jokes, shared songs, late-night conversations that mirrored the ones we used to have, back when we still stayed up talking. Thinking of you. I can't stop smiling when I see your name. This is wrong, but I don't want to stop. You get me in ways I didn't know I needed. I wish I could call you right now, just to hear your voice. She sent him photos, nothing inappropriate, just her face, smiling at the camera. Dark hair, pretty, young, maybe late 20s. She sent photos of her coffee cup, her dog, a sunset from her apartment window. He sent photos back, not of his face, of things he saw. A sunset from his car, a coffee cup with a heart drawn in the foam, a street sign, Cherry Street near the expensive florist, as if he were showing her his world, piece by piece, in a way he'd stopped showing me. There were good morning texts, good night texts, have a great day. Thinking of you, miss you, as if she were someone he couldn't see whenever he wanted, as if distance were the problem. I scrolled until I found the first message. It was from 6 months ago, July 14th, a Tuesday. Nice meeting you today. You too. Really enjoyed our conversation. Felt like we've been friends for years. I know what you mean. Let's do coffee again soon. Definitely 6 months. I closed the laptop. I sat very still. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. The clock on the nightstand said 9:47. Sophie was at preschool. He was at work. I was alone with the truth I'd been searching for and suddenly wished I'd never found. By the time he came home that night, I had cleaned the kitchen, picked up Sophie from preschool, made dinner, spaghetti with marinara sauce, Sophie's favorite, and set the table like nothing had changed. He walked in, dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, and kissed my cheek. His lips were dry. He smelled like coffee and that citrus soap from the gym. "How was your day?" he asked. "Fine," I said. "Yours?" "Long." We ate dinner. Sophie talked about her day. Something about a frog they'd seen at the park during outdoor time. How it was green and shiny and hopped really far. He laughed. I smiled. We looked like a family. We sounded like a family. If someone had walked in right then, they would have seen normal, would have seen fine. After Sophie was in bed, after the dishes were washed and the leftovers put away and the counters wiped down, I found him in the living room, scrolling again. Always scrolling. "Can we talk?" I asked. He looked up. Something in my voice must have told him this wasn't casual. His face changed, guarded, alert. "Sure," he said, setting his phone down on the coffee table, screen up this time. I sat across from him, not beside him, across, the coffee table between us like a border. "Who's Emily?" He didn't answer right away. His face did that thing faces do when they're deciding how much truth to give. "I told you," he said. "A coworker." "Is she the one you've been texting for 6 months?" His expression cracked, just slightly. Surprise, then something like fear. "I saw the messages," I said. "All of them." The silence that followed felt like falling. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just sat there, staring at his hands. They were clasped in his lap, fingers interlaced, knuckles white. "It's not what you think," he said finally. "Then what is it?" "It's just talking. We're just friends," I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it, the plain simple lie of it, was too much. "Friends don't say I can't stop thinking about you," I said. He flinched. "How long?" I asked. "It doesn't matter." "How long have you been lying to me?" I haven't How long? His voice dropped, quiet now, almost a whisper. 6 months, maybe 7. 7 months. More than half a year of my life spent loving someone who was somewhere else. Have you slept with her? No. Do you want to? He didn't answer. That was the answer. Did you take her to Del Frisco's? His eyes widened slightly. How? The receipt. In your jacket. You told me you were working late. It was just dinner. A bunch of us went. People from work. Stop lying to me. He stopped, his mouth closed. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in months. Did you buy her flowers? I asked. With money from our account? It was her birthday. You bought another woman flowers with our money. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He didn't have an answer. I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just walked out of the room and went upstairs. He didn't follow me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. Downstairs, I heard him moving. The sound of the fridge opening, the clink of a bottle, the soft hiss of the cap twisting off. He stayed down there for hours. I heard the TV turn on, voices murmuring, the house telling me he couldn't sleep either. When he finally came to bed, it was after 2 a.m. I pretended to be asleep, keeping my breathing even, my body still. He lay beside me, not touching, and I could feel the space between us like something solid. 6 inches that might as well have been miles. After that night, everything changed, and nothing did. We still lived in the same house. We still slept in the same bed. We still took care of Sophie, cooked meals, paid bills. But it was all performance now. A play we were both pretending to believe in. He said he'd stop talking to her. He said it was nothing. It didn't mean anything. He didn't know what he was thinking. He said he loved me. He said he was sorry. I said, okay. But I didn't believe him. I started checking his phone when he showered. I knew his new passcode. I'd watched him enter it enough times, standing just far enough away that he didn't notice. 1219, December 19th. I didn't know what the date meant. Didn't want to know. I looked at his location constantly, refreshing the app on my phone, watching the blue dot, tracking his movements. I searched his messages, his emails, his browser history. I became someone I didn't recognize, someone small and suspicious and desperate for proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining it. And I found it, over and over. New messages, carefully deleted but not carefully enough. Late-night calls to a number I didn't know, lasting 5 minutes, 15 minutes, once almost an hour. A lunch receipt for 2 from a sushi place downtown. Calendar entries that said meeting, but lasted 3 hours in the middle of a workday. When I confronted him, he cried. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't know why he kept doing it. He said he would stop. He said he'd block her number, delete her from his contacts, never speak to her again. I wanted to believe him. I tried. But trust, once broken, doesn't heal the way bones do. It stays fractured, aching in the cold. Some weeks later, I stopped checking. Not because I trusted him, but because I was tired. Tired of the vigilance, tired of the anger, tired of caring, tired of being the warden of our marriage, monitoring, investigating, policing. I stopped asking where he was. I stopped looking at his phone. I stopped pretending we were okay. We moved through the house like ghosts, occupying the same space but never really touching. He'd pass me in the hallway, and we'd turn sideways to avoid contact. At dinner, we talked through Sophie, using her as a buffer between us. Sophie, tell Daddy about your day. Sophie, ask Mommy if we can have ice cream. Never speaking directly, never meeting each other's eyes for more than a second. Sophie asked me once why I was sad. We were sitting at the table, just the two of us, coloring again. It was always coloring, her favorite activity. She reached out and touched my hand, her fingers small and warm and sticky from the popsicle she'd just finished. I'm not sad, I told her. Just tired. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on me, too knowing for a 4-year-old. Daddy's tired too, she said. In the quiet that followed, I realized I had to choose. Stay and pretend, or leave and start over. Neither felt possible. Neither felt right, I thought, about all the small moments that had led us here. The lies, the distance, the slow erosion of everything we'd built. I thought about the man I'd married, the one who used to hold my hand in the car just because, who used to laugh at my jokes even when they weren't funny, who used to look at me like I was the only person in the room. I didn't know where he'd gone, or maybe he was still there, and I was the one who'd disappeared, buried under years of routine and exhaustion and taking care of everyone except myself. Years can pass inside a single evening. By the time spring came, we had settled into a kind of truce. We were polite, distant, functional. We divided responsibilities with the efficiency of business partners. He handled Sophie's bath time. I handled bedtime stories. He grocery shopped. I cooked. We took turns putting her to bed. We stopped fighting because there was nothing left to fight about. He moved into the guest room. He said it was because he'd been staying up late for work and didn't want to wake me. I didn't argue. I helped him move his pillow, watched him carry his phone charger and his reading glasses and the book he'd been pretending to read for 3 months into the room down the hall. The house felt different after that, emptier, like something had been removed and the space it left was somehow larger than the thing itself. One night, I found him standing in Sophie's doorway, watching her sleep. It was late, past midnight. I'd gotten up for water and seen the light from her nightlight spilling into the hallway. His face looked older in the dim light, worn in ways I hadn't noticed before. New lines around his eyes, gray at his temples that hadn't been there a year ago. "I'm sorry," he whispered, not looking at me. "I know," I said. And I did. I knew he was sorry. I knew he loved me, in whatever way he still could. I knew he hadn't meant for any of this to happen. I knew he'd probably convinced himself it was nothing, that it didn't count because he never touched her, because it was just words, just attention, just the feeling of being wanted by someone who didn't know all his flaws yet. But knowing didn't change anything. The reckoning came quietly. I was folding laundry again, always folding laundry, endless cycles of washing and drying and folding, when I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt at home in my own house. The walls, the furniture, the routines, they all felt like props in a life I was no longer living. Everything looked the same, the blue shutters, the maple tree starting to bud, the ceramic bowl by the door still holding his keys. But none of it felt real anymore. I'd walk through rooms and feel like I was watching myself from outside, playing the role of wife, mother, woman who has her life together. I thought about staying, for Sophie, for the illusion of stability, for the memory of what we used to be, for the house we'd bought together, the mortgage we were still paying, the photo, albums full of a life that looked happy from the outside. But memories aren't enough to build a life on. I told him I wanted a separation, not loud, not dramatic, just a simple statement of fact. We were standing in the kitchen. It was a Sunday morning. Sophie was at my mother's for the day. The house was quiet. He was making coffee, his coffee now in his chipped mug. And I was standing by the window, looking out at the backyard where Sophie's swing hung motionless. "I think we should separate," I said. He didn't turn around, just stood there, still holding the coffee pot. After a moment, he poured, the sound of liquid hitting ceramic loud in the silence. "Okay," he said. That was all. He didn't seem surprised. We sat at the kitchen table and divided our life into neat categories: custody, bills, furniture, time. It was easier than I thought it would be. Maybe because we'd already been doing it for months, living separate lives under the same roof. Sophie would split time between us, week on, week off, transitioning on Sundays. He'd take the couch, the TV, the dishes from his apartment before we'd moved in together. I'd keep the bed, the kitchen table, the lamps we'd bought at that antique store in Vermont on our anniversary trip. We spoke in calm, practical voices, negotiating the end of our marriage like a business transaction. The only time either of us came close to breaking was when we talked about telling Sophie. "What do we say to her?" he asked. "The truth," I said. "That we still love her, that this isn't her fault, that sometimes people change and grow apart." He nodded. His eyes were red. We told her together, sitting on either side of her on the couch, holding her small hands in ours. She cried. She asked if it was her fault. We both held her and promised it wasn't, knowing she'd carry that question anyway, knowing she'd wonder for years if there was something she could have done differently. "Will I still see you both?" she asked, looking between us. "Every day," I said, "just in different houses." "Will you still love each other?" Neither of us knew how to answer that. He moved out on a Saturday. I watched him load boxes into his car. the same silver car with the dent in the bumper, and felt nothing. Not relief, not sadness, just a dull, distant ache like the memory of pain. Sophie helped him carry small things, her little hands wrapped around a box of books, her face serious like she understood this was important, this mattered. He hugged her for a long time before he left. Then he stood in front of me, and for a moment I thought he might try to hug me too, but he just nodded. "Take care of yourself," he said. "You too." He got in his car. I watched him drive away, Sophie's hand in mine, both of us standing in the driveway in the afternoon sun. After he left, I walked through the house. It felt larger somehow, quieter. I made coffee, just 1 cup, and sat at the table alone. The kitchen looked the same, the blue shutters, the morning light, the ceramic bowl still by the door, though it held no keys now. Years can pass inside a single evening, or they can end in one. I don't know if I've forgiven him. I don't know if forgiveness is something you grant or something that just arrives, unbidden, when you're too tired to hold the anger anymore. What I know is this: love doesn't always die loudly. Sometimes it just fades, worn down by small betrayals and smaller silences, until one day you wake up and realize you've been mourning it for months. I still see him. We share custody, we're polite, we talk about Sophie, about schedules, about ordinary things. He picks her up on Sundays at noon. He drops her off the following Sunday at the same time. We stand in the doorway and exchange information about her week. She has a dentist appointment, she needs new shoes, she's been having nightmares. We don't ask each other how we are. We don't mention what used to be. Sometimes I catch myself remembering the mornings, the way he looked when he slept, the safety I felt in the routines we'd built. And I wonder if he ever thinks about those mornings too, if he misses them, or if they've been replaced by new ones, with someone whose name I'll never say aloud. I don't ask, I don't want to know. I'm learning to live in a house that's mine now, learning to build routines that belong only to me. Some days are harder than others. Some days, Sophie asks when Daddy's coming home for good, and I have to explain again that he isn't, that this is how things are now. But some days are easier. Some days I wake up and make coffee, just 1 cup now, and stand in my kitchen, and the silence doesn't feel like loss. It just feels like mine. The house is quieter without him, emptier, but also somehow more honest. There's no pretending anymore, no performing, no small lies stacking up like stones. I'm learning what it means to be alone without being lonely, to find comfort in my own company, to build a life that doesn't require someone else's presence to feel real. Sophie is adjusting. She has her room here, her room at his place. She packs a little suitcase every Sunday, choosing which toys to bring, which books. She's learned to live between 2 worlds the way children of divorce do. Sometimes she asks if we'll get back together. I tell her I don't know. It's the most honest answer I can give. I see him in her face every day. His eyes, his smile, the way she tilts her head when she's thinking. And sometimes looking at her, I remember what I loved about him before everything got complicated. But memories are just that, memories. I loved him most in the mornings. I don't anymore. Not because I hate him, but because I've learned to love other things instead. The quiet of my own thoughts, the freedom of my own choices, the space to become whoever I'm meant to be next. This is the truth no one tells you about heartbreak. Sometimes it doesn't end with closure or clarity. Sometimes it just ends with understanding, with the simple recognition that love wasn't enough, that trying wasn't enough, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something that's already gone. I still don't know her name. Emily, whether that's real or just what he saved her under in his phone. I still don't know if they're together now, if the late-night texts turned into something real, if he gives her the parts of himself he stopped giving me. I don't ask. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is this. I survived. I'm still here, still standing in my kitchen in the morning light, still making coffee, still breathing, still becoming. The house doesn't feel haunted anymore. It just feels like mine. Retry,